Welcome to the Suzanne Atwell Show, a monthly news and public affairs program that is focused on issues, events, and people here on the Suncoast. To kick off 2018, we decided to take a look at the state of our local environment, the Gulf, the Bay, the beaches. We are fortunate to live in such a beautiful place, but we can't take it for granted. Pollution, development, population growth, all potential threats to this place we call paradise. We begin on the beach, not just any beach, the #1 beach in America, Siesta Key. For years, a storm has been a-brewing over the channel at Big Pass. It's a narrow body of water between Lido and Siesta Key that provides a tricky little passage between the Gulf and the Bay. But it's not navigation that has folks lawyered up, it's sand.
We're lawyered up, and then we got into this just because we were interveners, that they originally said that they didn't want us to be involved in it because it wasn't going to hurt. We had no impact to us, and that's just not the case. I live out here 22 years. I live right across the street from here, so I walk the beach pretty much every day, and I've been here through 3 renourishments. Basically, as I've learned is this over the course of the years, that there's a certain quality, clarity of the sand, the grain size, a lot of things that for a beach of this nature that has to happen. They just don't want you to take and go get gravel. So what they're saying is there was a couple different things. We looked at doing an offshore about 14 miles out, but there was really no sand that met the criteria. And then Longboat just trucked in a heck of a lot of sand just this past year, and we looked at doing that, and that was $42 million. Since I've been out here, it's getting less and less and less, and now it's not even, it's going away faster than it's coming. We figure that we've lost about 100,000 cubic yards of sand a year. This is not a Lido problem, it's not a Siesta problem, it's a regional up and down the west coast of Florida, and for them to say that we're not in danger of losing some buildings into the Gulf, it's just not true. Along here, by the pavilion, the public pavilion, we've lost about 3 or 4 feet of sand again of beach. So there's areas where there is no beach anymore. A long time ago, you and I talked about this bridge. Yeah. It was the worst thing that was ever going to happen to the city, and what is it now? And everybody was so afraid that it was going to be this. It's a jewel of the city now. It's a showpiece. When you see pictures of Sarasota, you see the Ringling Bridge. And getting back to this, when I walk and I talk to a lot of the tourists and people here, and the #1 question is what they ask is, what is going on with your beach? Where is it at?
The City of Sarasota and the Army Corps of Engineers support the plan to dredge Big Pass. A highly organized and well-informed opposition group has effectively stalled the process, citing inconclusive data and concerns about the impact on Siesta Key. I'm going to start out asking kind of a general question here about what you feel the scientific proof is that dredging the pass will have a negative impact on the beaches, on Siesta Key Beach.
Well, there hasn't been any scientific evidence that there won't be problems. The Atkins report that the county commission commissioned, and the results came out in March, I believe, of this year. Anyway, that was asked 3 objectives. One was, would the dredge negatively affect Ted Sperling Park? Would it negatively affect navigation in the pass? And would it negatively affect both the beaches on Lido and Siesta? And the conclusion was that they couldn't conclude that there would be no harm, that the model used, the CMS model used, which is a 2-dimensional model, wasn't the appropriate model, and that the data wasn't verified. So not knowing what's going to happen, it seems irresponsible, quite frankly, to dredge when you don't know what the results are going to be.
So what's the battle between the 3-dimensional versus the 2-dimensional models? And would you submit that we're not using the state-of-the-art models?
Well, absolutely. That's what came up and what I took back when I heard the Atkins' presentation to the county commission, that there's, I believe, about 3 different three-dimensional models that are industry standards. And their recommendation was that they would feed the same data that they fed in to the 2-dimensional model into the 3-dimensional model and run the data and see what the results would be. And that hasn't been done. And so again, it's hard to endorse a plan that you don't know what's going to happen.
I see. What are the alternatives for dredging? What should we be doing?
Well, we're all in agreement that Lido needs sand. And our position is on Siesta Key, obviously, is that Siesta Key shouldn't be harmed. The part of Siesta Key that's endangered is actually in the city. The north part of Siesta Key, Bird Key, Harbor Acres, downtown. With the wave intensity increasing with the shoal being dredged. There are historic areas where they've dredged before. One of the areas could be New Pass, which needs dredging, quite frankly, and it may be time to dredge that again. If the problem we've had with the Corps of Engineer plan is that it's planning on doing 4 times the volume of sand that has been historical, going back to 1965. So if you lower the volume of sand to about 250,000 cubic yards instead of over 1 million that they're looking for in this project, we believe you will find sources offshore or even in New Pass that would help Lido and take care of it like it has in the past.
But I hear the sources, it's not the good sand. It's not the right kind of sand.
Well, you know, good sand, right sand, I can't help you there. I know that no sand isn't working. And so I believe that sandbags would be just fine, not being a little facetious there. But, I mean, Longboat ended up trucking in sand from the inland. You know, Lido needs sand. The sand source in the shoal is extremely dangerous to the environment and to the properties, like I said, on Siesta Key and the rest of downtown Sarasota.
Sure. So what's your confidence level in the Army Corps of Engineers?
Not much. Not
Why?
much. Well, we can look at other projects they've done down in Miami, St. Augustine, Edmond Key, Longboat Key. And there's a couple others I can't quite remember. But the fact is their track record isn't very good when it comes to dredging passes. And my understanding is because it's extremely difficult to predict what's going to happen to the sand and how it's going to react to the pass once it's dredged. It's just a difficult thing to predict. So I don't have any confidence, quite frankly, in the Army Corps pulling this off.
Let's talk about money here. There's been talk about people that live on the beach near the water, whether it's private, special assessment. What's your feeling on some of these neighborhoods, condos, doing a special assessment when they purchase a home there for beach erosion?
Well, it's not unprecedented. On Siesta Key, I know that the Sanderling Club, those folks along there ended up chipping in. I'm not sure how much the percentage was, but they were assessed for the renourishment that went from their clubhouse, I believe, down to Turtle Beach. And Longboat Key assesses their residents. They have an A and a B side, A being on the Gulf, B being on the bay. The folks on the A side get assessed more than on the B for their renourishing project. So it's not unprecedented.
So, you know, I always think it's a shame that we can't, our neighboring beaches can't get along here, and that we've evolved into the sand wars, when maybe it should be a regional, a state, and a federal problem. Other communities have this. So why has this resulted in this? This is, you know, it's fattening the wallets of attorneys. Of course it is.
The attorneys win no matter what.
Sure.
And well, and this is what we've been talking about as far as it isn't just a big pass issue. It's a regional water. It's our environment, and this is why we've been asking for environmental impact statement, because the life of the bay is at stake, and it's taken a long time for Sarasota Bay to come back with millions of taxpayer dollars to make that happen, and it seems foolhardy to jeopardize that. But the waters that flow into Big Pass and Longboat Pass and New Pass and the jetty and even Midnight Pass when it was opened, it's a system, and that system is what needs to be analyzed and taken into account. And they haven't done that yet, and I'm not quite sure why, but it needs to start.
And how difficult would that be to implement that, to start that? I mean, those are good statements.
Well, I mean, I don't know, it seems simple and it seems straightforward and it seems common sense, but you know maybe better than I that common sense and government don't always coincide.
Yeah, I won't answer that. I often think about this whole issue in equanimity, how we deal with that. You've got a lot of these, when you go to the end on Lido, a lot of the condos, that it is clearly eroding. Right. And the equanimity of the value of a home, the people with very expensive condos, how they view it as those, they're not so expensive, but they're at risk too. They bought here hoping that they would enjoy Lido Beach. So where's that? And I think that plays into that. When you both sides secure attorneys, some can do it better than others, quite frankly.
Well, a lot of those condos endangered now are sitting where water was in 48. And so, and on Siesta Key, we've had property owners that have wanted to build on property that back in the 60s was at the water's edge. And the Sarasota County Commission stopped them. But it's neither here nor there, other than the fact we don't believe it's an appropriate action to dredge a natural pass that's never been dredged, to artificially maintain what's been going on in Lido, well, since 1964, as far as the dredging goes. At the risk of other city neighborhoods on North Siesta Key, as well as what's happening in downtown, because of the wave action that could happen and will happen. They think it'll double the wave energy coming across that shoal once it's dredged. So I have all the empathy in the world for Lido, but I don't think it's right to rob Peter to pay Paul. And if you take the shoal to help Lido, what's going to help North Siesta? Because it's being protected now, and we don't want to lose that protection.
Well, this is a tough issue, and it is tough because the stakes are so high on both. And I'm hoping that for the environment's sake, for economic sake, the whole quality of life issue is affected by these decisions that are going to come about. So I just, we hope that both sides will work it out, that it will become further than the local sand wars.
Sure.
And I appreciate your coming and talking about this. Thank you very much, Mark.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me.
Don't expect a resolution to the Big Pass controversy anytime soon. Hopefully, lessons will be learned from this that help us deal with beach erosion. And as we begin the new year, we went down to Main Street to ask folks what they think the #1 environmental issue will be in 2018 and what they'd like to see done about it.
Maybe I'd like to see more solar, so a concern would be not enough solar. Because it's already the 20th century, we could do better on solar, so that's what I'm thinking.
There's a lot of building going on, and I'm thinking, is this because there are all these boomers or whatever? Is it all of a sudden going to become too crowded?
My biggest thing is, every day when I'm over at Whole Foods having my lunch, I see litter on the ground. It's at a place where people are supposed to care about the environment, and so if it's happening there, it's happening everywhere. And so mostly the way people treat the environment.
Okay, I'm a little concerned with the overdevelopment going on here. There are very little chances to even view the seafront, and with overdevelopment, we're having lots of flooding issues downtown. I'm in a flood zone, right here, and are we compensating for that? I'm not sure.
Next, we take a look back at the year that was, the good, the bad, and the funny. 2017 on the Suncoast. It was quite a year. And it's my honor today to have Steve Reed. Steve is publisher and editor of the Longboat Key News, as well as the editor and publisher of the Sarasota City News as well. Welcome. We have a major project coming along now, the Bay.
Correct.
This could be the most important land use legacy that we've seen in our community in decades, and we need to look to the future and how that's going to be done. Give me your take on what's to come with this.
I think for me, it's a combination of complete excitement about the possibility. I'm excited about the process that's taken place, but I would mix that with complete fear and terror of the city commission, because the plan has been developed by a whole pack of community leaders, interested people with different interests pushing and pulling. They gave it out of that came the group, and the Bayfront Planning Organization now has engaged a planning organization, Sasaki. That plan's going to go to the City Commission. And maybe it's since you've gone off of the commission, but my experience with the commission is when you hand something important to the commission, it's a little like handing a perfectly baked wedding cake to a 3-year-old and say, carry it over to the table, please. It ain't gonna happen.
You know, I think to your point, because I think this issue is so big, and we have a blue chip group on it. I mean, they are armed with blue chip. Sasaki is an amazing design firm. But in fairness to the entire group, because they've armed themselves with such a group, they have gone over and above reaching a wide berth in the community. They have reached so many people, it's almost as though nothing's undone. So hopefully that is a good start.
It is a great start. The city has been trying to do this for 20 years.
Right.
We're first going to be a cultural arts district. We were trying to get rid of all that parking surrounding the Van Wezel. The city in fits and starts tried to plan it itself. It didn't work. We had different approaches that failed. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see the plan they take. What I hope Sasaki does is creates enough groundswell and the community leaders and the manager of the process, enough community backing, and they get enough community buy-on that the political pressure is so great on the city that they pass this thing. Because if they start to do their sausage making and get in there and push and pull it, it'll be a nightmare.
Well, and I think to your point, what has happened is the View and the Westin has become the scapegoat for all development and what has been going on downtown. So it's what I don't want to see happen is that they take that and translate that into what's going to happen with the View, what's going to happen with the Quay, so that you all lump it into one thing that we have to be really careful of or dread, as one ex-commissioner said. So how do we separate that and just move forward? Because it is going to be an exciting thing, and it needs to be done right. Let's go to the next issue. I felt the next issue should be Hurricane Irma. She blew in and affected the environment, the economy, the quality of life, human kindness. It affected all aspects of our community. So how are we prepared for next time? And what are the thoughts from the media, and what are we going to do next time?
Well, I mean, I've never seen so much Anderson Cooper in my life, but the good thing I think we found out was it tested our power grid, FP&L. The real disaster for me, in both personally in my life and for Longboat Key, and certainly I think the city, was the power outage. People lost power up to 10, 20, 15 days. It was a Category 1/2 storm. It completely devastated the power grid. And so I think that there's a real reckoning that has to happen between the residents, the local municipalities, and the Power Commission and the state and FP&L as to really how durable this system is, how much money is being invested in it, because I think the loss of time and the effort and the impact was far greater than it really needed to be.
I'm going to go into something very different, although it's the opioid crisis is something that's going to level the playing field, I think, that you've got. This is quite frankly, a health crisis. And I think it's something that we're talking about because I believe that people are all scrambling in every venue, whether it's mental health, social service, foundations, whatever, how we're gonna handle this, because it's gotten to the point where it's way past the war on drugs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think too, if there's one good thing coming out of it, it's making us think differently about healthcare, about funding drug abuse, and changing policing a little bit more into what we have to do with the homeless.
Right.
It's more of a support issue. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of need for deep mental health and addiction issues, a lot of social issues involved. It's going to cost a lot of money to deal with this.
But that may be helped by the fact that it is crossing all socioeconomic barriers now. People of all levels in families, whether they have money or not, are losing children to this, getting a hold of fentanyl. So I think I call it leveling the playing field, because we all have to address this now. This is not in one little corner of a neighborhood anymore. Atlanta Braves. I tend to look at the Atlanta Braves as a really good thing. It's a home run for our community. I have a lot of puns about that. Because it brings, I think sometimes sports can be the linchpin for communities, and a heck of a boon for Northport.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's different sides. Oh, we're spending money to bring in sports. I think this is how this will unite the community, I really believe, whether or not you believe that sports is a metaphor.
Well, I do. You know, you're hitting a dual thing. I love sports. I grew up and still am a huge Yankees fan. Play lots of sports. Love tennis. Love public tennis centers. Love going to baseball fields. The problem I have in this, and I don't know as well as you probably the details of the Atlanta Braves deal, is some of these public-private partnerships, whether it's the Lido Beach Pavilion, whether it's the golf course at Bobby Jones, whether it's Marina Jack, whether it's possibly this, but certainly the Benderson rowing facility, I believe there's huge questions in the fairness to taxpayers and what we're truly getting out of. I don't think it's good enough to always do an economic impact statement and say it's giving back dollars to the community.
That's a good point, because that's issues being raised
I
more
feel
and more.
sometimes we're taking tax dollars and giving them over to a private entity to build out a facility that benefits them. And meanwhile, we're trying to come up with money for drug problems and homelessness. So we have to look at where our priorities are.
Sure, I understand that, absolutely.
I may be more liberal than you.
But you know, sports are sacrosanct in this country, you know, and forget the region. And I'm going to go finally, I want to do the last story, which can be funny. The Siesta Key show.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so many opinions on that. I think, is this serious enough to talk about? Is this the standard for our great Siesta Beach to have this kind of show? It's just a question I've asked many, many people. Or is it something that's just a lot of fun and let's not take it so seriously?
Oh, it's a tough one, because we say it's a horrible show. It's poorly done. It's trite. It's superficial. But at the same time, every time I turn on the national news, someone's been groped. Right. The president's groping. He's hanging out with Billy Bush a few years ago. Yeah. So how do we say that's wrong and beneath us when the national news is filled with the most craziest behavior I've ever seen?
Well, what you're saying is it's reflecting national news, and I think a lot of issues that come down to our own municipality are reflecting what's going on up there. And in the case of a reality show, I like to call this show, it's light on mental acuity, but heavy on beautiful bodies.
That's right, and I think, I would like to think Longbow Key News and Sarasota City News and your show are the opposite. Yeah. We're going to dig down deep into these issues. Yes. We're not going to be showing all these hotties running around. So if you want the beautiful people, tune into that. If you want to dig down into the issues, you watch your show. Right. And I like to think our community, though, is the smarter. It's the latter. We're the smart community. We want good art. Yeah. We want to have a Bayfront full of art. We want to see the Bayfront redeveloped. We want top-tier sports teams. Exactly. Do we want stupid shows on Siesta Key? Probably not. They'll go away, though.
But I believe it will. It'll be a blip on the screen eventually. It's kind of funny. I guess I'm not sure if they're having another season, but it will be a blip. And guess what? We have conversations about it. We talk about it, and that's not a bad thing.
Let's put it this way. I don't think I could make it through an episode of that show without abusing opioids.
On that
I'm joking.
note, Steve, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, thanks to Steve Reed. It's been wonderful. We could have probably gone on many, many more issues. But as you can see, it was an exciting year and a lot to talk about. Well, there you go. It was quite a year. We are always interested in your feedback and your story ideas. You can join the conversation online on Facebook at Suzanne Atwell Show, and this program as well, as all our previous shows are available on YouTube at Suzanne Atwell Show and our website, suzanneatwell.org. That wraps it up for this show. Thanks for watching. We leave you with the sights and sounds of gators at Deep Hole in Myakka State Park. See you around town.